What's good, YouTube? This is Sam Mac Boxing TV, and I'm back again with another video to talk some more boxing with my people. Make sure y'all hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you can stay notified when I drop some more heat on you. Alright, y'all, so I wanted to go ahead and make this video because I've been thinking about this for quite some time. And, on my personal Facebook page, I always talk about boxing all the time. But have you ever wondered who in the hell is a world champion in boxing? I know this thought has come across your mind. Even if you're not a hardcore boxing fan, even if you're just a casual fan, you turn on boxing and you'll see a guy or a lady boxer with all these different belts. And you're just thinking like, okay, so which one matters? Which one is important? And then you'll see different people in the same weight class. One guy will have a belt and another guy will have a belt. This guy says, I'm the champ. And then the other guy says, well, I'm the champ. So who's the real champ? Well, I'm going to go ahead and break this one down for y'all so we can have a better understanding on how the champions are recognized in boxing. And maybe it'll be a little bit easier to understand, even on the simplest basis for if you're just starting out and just learning about this. I'm gonna break it down pretty easy, just so it all comes together. Well, anywho, as far as boxing has 16 weight classes in total. 16. And the way that boxing is run, boxing doesn't have like an overall governing body. Kind of like how Dana White runs the UFC. He's one guy that's in control of over that whole league. Well, boxing doesn't have that. Boxing has sanctioning bodies, and there are four major sanctioning bodies, which is the World Boxing Association, which is the WBA, the International Boxing Federation, which is the IBF, the World Boxing Organization, which is the WBO, and then lastly, the World Boxing Council, which is the WBC. We see these fighters, come to these fights with all these different belts, and you probably think to yourself, which one of these really matter? Like, which one is more important than the other? And this is where the confusion in boxing comes from. So you got four separate sanctioning bodies who all recognize one another as world champions. So anyone that holds a belt from any of these four sanctioning bodies is recognized by the others as a world champion in boxing. Getting back to the number of weight classes, having four different sanctioning bodies, you can have up to four different champions in one single weight class. And that's because you can have a champion with the WBA belt, the IBF belt, the WBO belt, and the WBC belt. For example, the welterweight division, 147 pounds. We have Errol Spence Jr., who is the current reigning unified WBC IBF welterweight world champion. We've got Manny Pacquiao, who is the WBA welterweight world champion. And then we have Terrence Bud Crawford, who is the WBO world welterweight champion. All which have a rightful claim to being a world champion in the division. You see these guys, each guy has a belt. You're probably like, oh, well, which belt really matters? To really be that number one guy in your weight division, you have to collect all four of those belts. So basically what that means is you got a belt, you got to go fight somebody else in your weight class that has a belt. You win, you take his belt, you got two. You got your two belts, you go fight somebody else that has a belt. Maybe he's a unified champion with two belts, maybe he just got one. You beat him, that's three. The last belt holder, you put your three on the line against his one, and the winner becomes the undisputed champion. And that's why so many people get confused, because You don't really see too many undisputed champions like that in boxing. Most recently, the most recent undisputed champions that were in boxing were Terrence Bud Crawford when he unified the junior welterweight division at 140 pounds, and then Alexander Usyk, who unified the cruiserweight division at 200 pounds and became the undisputed cruiserweight champion. Boxing is a much tougher sport to become an undisputed champion, especially nowadays, where up until 2007, the WBO wasn't even counted as a recognized world title. Back 2007 prior, you had to win the WBA, the IBF, and the WBC belts to become the undisputed champion. Just using another example, Iron Mike Tyson, when he was the champion, there wasn't but one champion in the heavyweight division but him. And he held the WBA, IBF, and WBC heavyweight titles and was the first man to do so. Quick little tidbit on that. But anywho, to hold all those belts means you're the man to beat. You're the man who beat the man who beat the man. And if anybody wants to take the crown, they got to go see you. But when you have corruption in boxing, where promoters get involved, pay for rankings for certain guys, they'll have a fighter fight a mismatch against some handpicked guy so that their cash cow can keep their belts. It's just a whole mess of just confusion. And then with the smaller weight divisions, you have guys that jump different weight classes. So you'll have a guy who will fight for, just using another example, Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez is a 4-division world champion. Canelo has held world titles at junior middleweight, which is 154 pounds, middleweight, which is 160 pounds, super middleweight, which is 168 pounds, and then just most recently, light heavyweight, which is 175 pounds. Canelo just recently, in his last fight against Gennady Golovkin at 160 pounds, unified the division and held the WBA, IBF, and WBC world titles. But after that, instead of trying to unify the division and fight the WBO champion at 160, Canelo decided to jump up a weight class and fight for another belt. And, just with the smaller weight classes like that, you don't really see too many guys become an undisputed champion just because they jump up and down in weight like that. And then you also just have guys that will duck other champions. So we never truly see one true king or queen of a division, because you might have a champion that wants to smoke, and then you have another champion that don't want to smoke. And that just adds more to the confusion. And as of recently, the World Boxing Council just created a title which they call the WBC Franchise Champion, which basically just gives whoever is a WBC champion a legal right to duck a mandatory title defense. And a mandatory title defense is a fight in which the sanctioning body orders a specific contender to fight the champion. And if the champion doesn't fight this contender, then they have the risk of being stripped of the title. This franchise title, or it's not even a belt, first of all, and we haven't seen a belt for this as of late either. And there's only 2 franchise champions, which is Canelo Alvarez and Vasily Lomachenko, as of the time of this recording of this video. There really isn't any need for a franchise champion. I understand that the WBA is also another sanctioning body that has drawn up tons of confusion, because the WBA has the WBA interim title, which is a belt that can be won And in the event that the actual champion is unable to defend his title, the interim champion can then be elevated to the full world champion and then would be recognized as the WBA world champion. The WBA regular champion, which is recognized as a world title, which is no different than really the WBC title or the IBF title. But then, to add to the confusion, the WBA has the WBA Super World Champion. And the Super World Champion is a champion who is unified in a particular weight division. And it basically just gives them the opportunity to still remain champion without being stripped or having to really fight too many mandatories. Anthony Joshua is an example of that. He's a WBA Super Champion. And Manny Pacquiao, he was also a WBA Super Champion, but he wasn't even a unified champion. So a belt that's supposed to be for a unified champion being presented to, just a one belt holder, it's confusing. It just adds to the confusion of the fans. And I feel that, just my personal opinion, just from what I've seen, the championship confusion really pushes a lot of fans away because people don't know who the hell the champion is, so they don't really know who they should root for or want to root for. You got all these damn minor sanctioning bodies like the IBO, the IBA, the NABO, the NABF, which are belts that can be won, but they're not recognized on the same level as the Big Four. It's just too much confusion. Like, there really just needs to be one belt per weight class, one champion, and everybody goes for that one person. There needs to be some restructuring in boxing, especially when it comes to the champions, because it's too confusing for the fans. And it's not fair to us as fans, and especially these new fans who get tuned into boxing, wanting to find out information about who's the top, who's the contender, who's the real champ, who's the paper champ, who got their belt on a fluke, who paid for their belt, what have you. But hopefully, this was a little breakdown. Hopefully this kind of got a little bit into it and explained it a little bit clearer for y'all to understand. But I want to know what y'all think. Leave your comments below. Until next time, this is Sam Mack Boxing TV. Peace.